All right. Good Saturday morning to everyone in the hobby. Super Bowl weekend, nonetheless, as well. So, big weekend there. This is another edition of Hobby Hotline 223 to be exact. I think we're going to call this the Mensch edition, as I'm joined by, to my left on the screen, Mr. Danny Black from Sports Ball. And below us, only on the screen, Mr. Uncle Rich Klein. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's a lovely but a little chilly day here in DFW. It was 35 degrees when I woke up this morning.
My
Yeah,
boys
well,
are
listen,
my boys
in
are out playing flag
Syracuse, it's
football in 40
Siberia.
degrees. John,
That's
sorry about
perfect
that.
football weather.
Speaking of football, I think there's a big game tomorrow, something called a Super Bowl where they determine a champion. A lot of people are going to watch it, including us three, and many watching us right here now and listening. And a lot of like back storylines, guys, to this game. It's the first time in NFL history that both starting quarterbacks are African American. That's as surprising as that is in 2023. That is the case. It's the first time. That's another surprising one that two brothers are opposing each other in the Kelsey brothers, Jason and Travis. And for the first time ever, the flyover, the Air Force planes that fly over the stadium before the game starts will be an all female pilot crew. So a lot of first in this Super Bowl. Brothers facing off for the first time. First time both starting quarterbacks are African American, and that flyover you'll see. I think they show it on the broadcast, but those in the stadium will definitely see it. Will be the first time ever where every one of those pilots are of the female variety. So very, very cool. A lot of none of that stuff really necessarily affects the game once the whistle blows and kickoff starts. Obviously, the players that we talked about, brothers and African American quarterbacks are in the game and playing. But I found some of those interesting that you get that many firsts in one Super Bowl
You mean there's no
weekend.
balloon going to fly over the stadium
Yeah,
Where it hasn't happened
it's
yet.
brought to you by Goodyear China.
or BF Goodrich
No
China?
truth to the rumors that those two balloons, or however, but I don't know, they might be balloons they don't know about, are just trying to capture images of the Super Bowl back to China for those that want to watch there. But guys, thoughts on whether it's the storylines or the game itself?
I think that the injury story of having that bye week has never been bigger for a Super Bowl, maybe, than having two quarterbacks dealing with injuries. So it's the shoulder versus the ankle, and I I really don't know. I think it's a point and a half, and I think there's a reason this is as good of a game as I've seen in a while. I think the role the Eagles are on probably gives them a little bit more momentum. So I like the Eagles with the momentum, and from everything I hear, they're coming out ready to win.
It's really nice that this year that the two best teams in each conference got there. That
Yes.
doesn't always happen, but this year it was very obvious the two best teams got to the Super Bowl. And as you said, but football is a very physical game. Everybody's hurt this time of year. There is really nobody healthy, and so it's just who's less hurt. I mean, but both quarterbacks are going to do what they can do. One thing with Mahomes in the ankle issue is that if I remember correctly, the Eagles are the first team ever to have four players with 10 or more sacks in a season. That's a pretty good defensive line. And if you're not really able to move, you can be a sitting duck. I mean, I don't care how good you are with your wrist flips as a quarterback. If you're trying to live for your life and run for your life or jog for your life or hobble for your life, you can't really do very much.
And I don't think they have. I don't think Kansas City has the running game that Philadelphia does either.
Well, I'll say this. I look at it this way, right? Special teams is sort of, I don't want to say it's an anomaly, but it's hard to compare special teams. But I think Philly's defense is better than Kansas City's defense. But I think Kansas City's offense is better than the Eagles. To what degree? I don't know. They say defense wins championships. I was a defensive coordinator during my football coaching days. But I know Philly fans are. I think it's going to be a very good and close game. If you believe the script that was leaked, Philly's going to win 37-34, according to that leaked script, which is
And
that's a
that's a
joke.
great script. That would mean one heck of a
I'm
game.
kidding. I'm kidding. But for those that believe the NFL script,
Eagles minus 1.5. Believe in the script.
Unrelated, I got to do something.
yeah. If I will say this, if the Eagles win this game 37-34, the internet's going to break and explode.
The internet's going to go wild no matter what. So what's the difference whether it's 37-34 or 37-14? The internet will still be the internet.
I really,
AI, Chat GPT will have a good time no matter what.
I really think that people are forgetting A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and how much that Eagles offense really has in talent. They just don't talk about them, and those two guys are better than any receivers, wide receivers that Kansas City has.
Yeah, listen, I have no dog in this fight being a Steeler fan, and I probably won't have a dog in the fight for years to come now being a Steelers fan. But, you talk about the injuries, Danny. I think I'm not saying there's much to do about nothing. There's serious injuries, but if you watched Mahomes in that AFC Championship game, he was running, looked very good. I think that ankle. I'm not saying it's 100% because it's not, but I don't think it's going to be a huge factor. Hurts, we'll see. Again, his injury is a little more recent. If you're looking at a timeline. If I'm making a pick here, and I'm hoping for just an exciting and a great game with some funny commercials. But my gut is telling me, Hurts first time in this spotlight. I think the lamps are going to be pretty warm for him. I'm not saying he's going to have a bad game, but Mahomes has been here before. Mahomes has won this game before and lost this game before. So I think those lights are not going to be as hot. And I think really that's where the difference is going to come is who wilts under the hot lamp. I don't think Mahomes is going to do that. I think that, the Chiefs win, like a 28-24, 28-25 type game. So I'm taking the Chiefs. Listen, bet, any betting you do off of what I say is your responsibility, not my fault. But that's where I'm going with my gut here. I think the experience over the upstart. And the Eagles may be the team you start to see. This might be a matchup we see next year in the Super Bowl. I just think it's not. I just don't see Hurts beating sort of the heir apparent this year. Not yet.
There was a comment made earlier about how the Eagles have cakewalked their way in and the Chiefs have had tough games. And it reminds me, as a Giants fan, of 1991 Bills versus Giants in wide right. The Bills cakewalked their way through. I think they beat the Raiders 51-3. And they had another game where they just dominated. And the Giants won 15-13 in San Francisco against the 49ers to put themselves in the Super Bowl. And in that game, they were so used to playing those close, tough games, and the Bills weren't, that they were able to eke out a victory. Of course, if Norwood could if the Bills had managed to clock a little better, if you watch that game and they added about 15 seconds, maybe Norwood's in field goal range, kicks the winning field goal in the whole history of football, and the Bills win 3 out of 4 Super Bowls instead of losing 4 straight.
That'd be something.
Philly Joe says take the over. Ziggy Nell said, hey, Hurts has played in big games before. Granted,
that's the thing.
but
he
not
did
the
play in
Super Bowl.
college in big games.
The Super Bowl is a
That's
beast
pretty big.
in its own right. It's made veterans very nervous. So it's not the BCS championship game. It's not the Big Ten championship game. This is the Super Bowl. So
John, you
I'm not
said
saying Hurts is going to play bad, guys. I just think you got one guy who's been there, done that, including lose one, uh, and I think he gets his second ring.
so. John, what? John,
Danny, can you post, or John, can you post the link for the for calling in?
yeah.
Oh
And
yeah, let me get
John,
that.
I don't know why you don't like Jalen Hurts.
Well, it's not that. Listen, I'll say this: Mahomes won the MVP this year. The other night, it probably should have been, frankly, it should have been,
Jalen
you
Hurts.
know, it probably should have
I,
been
I
Jalen
see I
Hurts.
see Ray from Philly and other people are in the chat, and I just want them to hop on because they mentioned within an hour or so, give or take, they're going to be speaking of Super Bowl festivities. They're debuting the first football card Hall of Fame class. I was lucky enough to be asked to vote. It's really a really cool subject. So if you want to call in, we definitely want to chat with you about that.
So yeah, I thought Hurts should have won the MVP, guys. But here's the thing: I'm not saying I'm not sold on Hurts, but he was in the bottom five in a lot of categories last year, not this year, that he's number one, two, or three in this year. So he's turned like he's just whatever he did in the offseason, working with coaches, watching film, training, it worked. But he's done it for this is the first year he's on this level. Mahomes, as we all know, has been on this level
Yeah,
for
but
more than
I've
just
seen
a
that happen
year.
before. Some guy you may have heard of named Terry Bradshaw. If you look at his stats from his rookie year in 1970, you may wonder how the guy ever got to a second year of being a starter. They
Uh,
had Terry Hanratty on the team. He was a qualified backup. He went to Notre Dame. He had played in, quote, the greatest college football game ever played. And gee, tell me how Mr. Bradshaw did after his rookie year.
Well, he's got four. He's got four. Here's the thing. I'm not a listen. He's got almost as many interceptions as touchdowns. I'm not a huge Terry Bradshaw guy. Now, again, it's a different era. Joe Namath has
yeah,
almost as many interceptions as
Namath and
touchdowns.
Bradshaw are both overrated. While we're talking football and
John, it
football
was a
focus.
different game back then. You didn't throw all these dump off passes. You threw 15, 20-yard, 30-yard passes
No,
every
I
time you
think
threw a pass.
Yeah, but Johnny
I
Unitas
think
could do
you're
it.
right. I think you're right. Listen, it's not. I take Patrick Mahomes over Terry Bradshaw. Four rings to one, and maybe about to be two, when it comes to talent. Again, we're talking about two different eras of football, so it's not necessarily fair to do that.
No,
But and
my
again, I'm a
point
Steeler
wasn't
fan.
picking
I'm
apart
a
the
Mean
era,
Joe
John.
Green guy.
My
Like,
point was that you can have a bad rookie year and somehow move up very nicely depending on who else is around you. He didn't have Swan and Stallworth and people like that in his rookie year. He had people like Dave Smith, who spikes the ball on the 10-yard line as he's running on Monday night for a sure touchdown to, hey, that was the first time I think that ever happened where the guy spiked the ball before he hit the end zone. He was so happy that he forgot to see where he was on the field. That's the type of receivers he had. And he didn't have Franco Harris or Rocky Bleier. He had Frenchie Fuqua, who wasn't bad, and Don Hoke, who was at the end of his career. But he didn't have the same personnel around him. The Eagles also upgraded the personnel around Hurts.
yeah, arguably they have the best line, offensive line in football. Their defense has made huge strides. Probably, arguably, them and San Fran, probably two of the best defenses. So I'm not saying. Listen, if the Eagles win this game, I'm not going to be stunned. I'm just saying you can only pick one unless you're calling a tie. You got to pick. You're going to pick someone. I'm just saying I'm going with the experience of Mahomes of being here before, winning it before, losing it before. I think he's going to be a little more cool, calm, and collective. I'm not predicting a Hurts bad game. I'm just saying it might be a mistake late with the lights being hot that changes the outcome of this game, and that's where I'm hanging my hat on. I'm going with the Chiefs. If the Eagles win this game, The only thing that would surprise me, guys, about this game is if it was a blowout one way or the other. I think these two teams are pretty evenly matched. So I'd be shocked if someone runs away with this early and coasts. I think it's going to be a close game, but you got to pick someone. I'm going with the experience of guys that've been there before in the Chiefs. And
We've
I
been
don't
very
really
lucky. Really
either
haven't.
way. I don't care. You know what I mean? Other than a bet I might place, I won't have a rooting interest either way.
There's a
We've been
lot of
very lucky. There have not been a lot of bad Super Bowls the last 10, 15, 20 years. In the 70s and 80s, most of the games were pretty dreadful. Now the games are pretty good for the most part.
Great point
And
by Rex here. That Brady, Bradshaw, Montana played before all those quarterback rules that protect them. Same thing with you could manhandle receivers on the line and hand check them and almost tackle them. At least in that first 5 yards. So yeah, again, that's why I said it's a different. It's hard to compare quarterbacks from different eras, and we
well,
still do it. I know I still do it, probably unfairly, but I just I just think Mahomes is he's got that it factor. It's going to be a good. I'd be shocked if it wasn't a good game. I
John.
think we're looking at a game that's going to go 4 quarters and still. Until the very end, we won't know who's the winner until the clock reads 0. Go ahead, Danny.
I was just going to say you made a good point there about the differences in the times and the defenses. Do you think that's reflected in this year's Hall of Fame class?
Well, let's segue there because I don't think we're going to spend a lot of time on this Hall of Fame class, right? But let me put that on the screen. Let me announce for those that don't know. And let's give these folks proper credit, right? They're Hall of Famers, NFL Hall of Famers. We got Zach and Joe Thomas. We got DeMarcus Ware, Darrell Revis. We've got Rondé Barber, Coach Don Coryell, Eric Coryell, Chuck Howley, Joe Klecko from the Sack Exchange, and Ken Riley. What do all those lists have in common? You got one coach, you got one offensive lineman, and then the rest is defense. So when we talk about, everyone looks at everyone in the hobby, especially on the football side of the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the Hall of Fame class gets announced, we, relate it to cards. Like what cards are going to go up? Who's going to get a bounce? What rookie card am I holding of this Hall of Famer that I might have to change the price tag on potentially, right? And I don't know about you guys, and again, this isn't a slight to the class themselves. They earned their enshrinement, and congratulations. But when we talk about on the hobby side, no offensive players in this year's class. I can't remember. Maybe Rich can fill us in. I can't remember a class this defensive heavy in a long time. And so when you look at that, quote hobby bounce, I think Joe Thomas stuff has went up. I've sold some stuff recently. Darrell Revis, arguably one of the greatest corners of all time, right? Might get a bump with his rookies. He's probably some of the most modern of this class. So not a lot of hobby. I don't want to say love, or I just don't see a lot of hobby
relevance at all.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this whole class, as you said incorrectly, there's really no hobby impact in this class. Yes, the Ken Riley's, and other than the rookie card, Chuck Howley rookie card was basically priced as a Hall of Famer already. But the rest of his cards will get a bump. And, Riley is a long-deserved, overdue Hall of Famer. Don Coryell, coaches don't get enough cards. So you're not really going to have, unless there's an autographed card of Coryell, you're really not going to have much for him. And for the other guys, Darrell Revis was already considered a Hall of Famer as a player. It was almost a foregone conclusion Revis Island was going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I've never heard at a card show for all these years anybody ask if I have any Darrell Revis rookie cards. I never heard anybody ask me if I had any Joe Thomas rookie cards. I never heard of anybody, and I'm in Dallas, and I rarely heard anybody saying, would you have any DeMarcus Ware rookie cards?
Well,
You know,
that's
these are not the skill players. The skill players are what draws the interest. And the best of the skill players will make the Hall of Fame. But that's not the Hall of Fame's job to let in skill players. Unless you want to say the Hall of Fame should be, well, fame is more important than how good you were on the field.
I mean, it's also a reflection, like Rich, like you said, the hobby only likes certain positions, and they only react to certain positions. I wonder, and I can't remember off the top of my head, what the bump was for quarterbacks that we assumed would get in when they got in, if there was anything left on their runway. And then you compare the Super Bowl bump that like Hurts might get versus the Hall of Fame bump from these guys, and the Super Bowl is going to be a much bigger bump.
Well, that's because a Hall of Fame of a person you expect to be in the Hall of Fame, they're already priced that way. It's been that way for 40 years. They get priced as a Hall of Famer. They make the Hall of Fame. There might be a small bump, but it's not a huge bump. The bump in baseball, switching to that for a second, comes when it's somebody you don't expect to be a Hall of Famer. Even Fred McGriff got a bump this year. And yet, if you had been studying, you would have known that Fred McGriff is going to be a Hall of Famer. You know, that was a surprise to some people, but in reality, it really wasn't a surprise. Fred McGriff on the Veterans Committee fits what the Veterans Committee wanted to do. And by the way, he should have gotten more votes than he did when he was a player. He was going to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, he was never tainted by anything steroids. He had 493 career homers, would have had 500 without that little 1994 strike. He's a Hall of Famer. And so these guys are Hall of Famers. But there's not enough interest in non-skill football players to really bump up their interest in card prices.
Couple comments. Kelly Burlington says it's a shame that Don Coryell won already. He's not, he's passed away. So you see his daughter on the graphic there, his daughter accepting the honor on his behalf. So he doesn't get to, unfortunately, enjoy it himself. Vintage Card Collector posted a comment here, something I kind of thought about. So I sort of echo this. NFL allows way too many people in the Hall of Fame, waters it down. Yeah, their classes are bigger than some of the other sports, especially on the baseball side of the house. And that's why it's shocking that this size class, right? This is why I think we're talking about it this morning, guys and folks in chat and listening on podcasts, right? That's why I think when you have this many entrants into the hall, and there's that little sort of hobby effect from it. That's the surprising part. That's why we're discussing this. Is it just it's just a heavy defensive class with one coach and one offensive lineman? Joe Thomas. Listen, like I said, I'm a Steelers guy, so I don't like the praise necessarily. But Joe Thomas, arguably one of the best offensive linemen in the history of the game. Very envious watching him play, wishing he had black and gold on instead of brown and white. So he's definitely well deserving first ballot. And but again, have I sold some Joe Thomas cards? I have. He's got, believe it or not, a Prism rookie. So I think stuff like that will go up. I mean, a Joe Thomas Prism rookie is going to go up because now we all knew he was getting in, like you said, Rich. But when that announcement's made, right, there's also that segment of the hobby, like, oh, Joe Thomas, Hall of Fame. Let me get some of his cards, right? So that drives up the demand there a little bit. Is it going to be a huge bump? No, we're talking about alignment and not a skill set. I want to make sure we say skill set position. That linemen have skills too. It's just not the skill set position. Wide receiver, running back, quarterback, that sort of thing. But again, well deserving to this year's class. I don't want to make this. There was a few names on the list that I kind of scratched my head a little bit, but I'm not. We could do a whole show on that. I don't. Today's not that day to do it, but. Any closing thoughts on this particular subject?
Well, you look
or
at a
additional
group
thoughts?
like this and you wonder where somebody like Torrey Holt's going to make the Hall of Fame because he was a wide receiver and he was part of the greatest show on turf. And he has and had a following. and he's a skilled player, and that's the type of person who I think the Hall of Fame should try to, but remember, it's not the Hall of Fame's choice. It's the writers who get into this meeting and make the choice. And that's their decision. And one other thing to remember is I know that it's probably a little too big as a class, but one thing football does very smart for the Hall of Fame, they guarantee that people are going to get into the Hall of Fame. In baseball, if nobody gets voted in by the Veterans Committee or the writers, you can have no induction. And I think there should almost be a rule where someone has to get in each year so you can have I'll use the word excuse, but like in baseball, you can have an excuse to make sure that Cooperstown gets busy for a few months, for the few weeks of the, everybody has a reason to get together, even if it's just one player getting in. And football guarantees, I think, a minimum of 5 in every class. And you can argue whether that's too big or not, but at least there's going to be a Hall of Fame ceremony with players getting in. Basketball, there's going to be a Hall of Fame ceremony. Hockey, there's going to be a Hall of Fame ceremony. That somebody's going to get in. And that, I think, is the one weakness of baseball. There's no guarantee that anybody's going to get in.
Well, 2 quick thoughts. First one is I would rather have a qualified class than just to have a class. So that's my first thought. But the second one is I love Rex's point, the difference between card and memorabilia collectors. And, since we're talking on Hobby Hotline, we should probably keep both sides in mind. It's not just cards, it is cards and memorabilia. Yeah. And that's a great point, is that memorabilia collectors do attack a lot of this differently. And wonder what you guys thought on memorabilia prices and the effect on the Super Bowl or the Hall of Fame, because I think that these guys going to the Hall of Fame, that their autographs will forever now be worth more. All those things, all their game used items are now worth more. And there might be a much bigger bump on the memorabilia side.
I think you said it. Danny, and piggybacking off Rex's original comment, right? Memorabilia for non-skill set positions goes more and is more in demand than, let's say, cards on the hobby side. Now, not that memorabilia is not part of the hobby, but I think memorabilia is more, with fans of teams that maybe don't collect cards but collect memorabilia, right? There's going to be a lot of Browns fans already have autographed Joe Thomas pictures on their wall. Now, maybe the ones that don't say, man, the guy's in representing the Browns in the Hall of Fame. I got to have a Joe Thomas, jersey on my wall, in my bar, in my restaurant. So memorabilia, I could blur sort of the lines between skill set players and non-skill set players, where in the hobby, everyone loves the quarterback, right? Even running backs don't get a lot of hobby love because their careers are, 3 to 5 years on for the most part. So I think memorabilia is a whole different animal in its own right.
But in a good way. And to Rich's point before, that he doesn't get a lot of requests for DeMarcus Ware cards, I bet a DeMarcus Ware jersey on the wall would get a lot of compliments.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think you're both right. I think there are actually 3 markets, not 2. There's the card market, there's the memorabilia market, and there's the autograph market. How many people do you know collect an autograph of anybody who's in the Hall of Fame? Now you have to get 9 more. You may have it because you may be stocking away some of these people. But if you didn't think that somebody was going to make the Hall of Fame, you may not have bought an autograph of the person. So it's really 3 markets: cards, memorabilia, and autographs. And they are 3, in this case, 3 very distinct markets.
Well, it's a great point.
Yep. All right, guys, let's go to our next topic. Since we're talking about pricing and bumps and all that, let's kind of segue to this next one here. We got two big things happen with 2 GOATs of their respective sports, right? One is exiting stage left. Apparently, he signed his retirement papers yesterday, so we will not see a quick, just before the new season next year that he's coming back. At least that's the report. In Tom Brady and LeBron James just broke the scoring record in the NBA, passing fellow Laker, if you will, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. What kind of impact is this going to have? Pricing, whether it be cards, or, Rich mentioned the three prongs of the hobby, right? Cards, memorabilia, and autos. Both of these are different circumstances. One is announcing he's done playing his sport, and the other just broke. The highest is the leader on a significant record now of is the greatest in that category. And what do we think happens here?
I think
I mean,
that
LeBron James, all his and Brady, all their stuff's already priced as the most expensive things around. How much higher does high go? I mean, does the Brady, what is it, the Contenders rookie signed to 99, or the exquisite collection, LeBron James RPA, I think also numbered to 99, that's mega thousands of dollars for both of them? I mean, how much higher does higher get? Do we hit the million mark? I mean, when you're dealing with players of this caliber, it's almost a safe bet, but there might be some dips. And the only question is, how many of them will hit the market, especially on the very high end stuff? If it's the dollar cards, they'll still be in the dollar cards, or the $3 cards, or the $5 cards. That's not going to change. There's enough LeBron James base Prism cards around. They'll be $1 or $2 or $3, whatever price level they're at, from now for the next 20 years, until all of a sudden we have another market rush when I'm dead and gone, because at that age I will be dead and gone. Where there'll be another market rush. But how many? Where do you go? The highest end stuff may have another bump, but the lowest end stuff will be fine, and maybe there'll be a movement in the mid-level stuff of 1 level, 2 levels. Danny?
Well, I think that for Brady, it locks in his cards kind of now for the rest of his career. He now becomes, there's nothing else, not a down year. We're not going to have, Willie Mays on the Mets. It's done. It's locked in. We now know what the career looks like. So now we have this final package of his career, and I think that actually helps the card prices long term. The normal curve is we're going to see a little bump, and then it'll actually dip a little bit up until, ironically, the Hall of Fame induction. And then you'll get another little bump. And then the rest of his life, he's in that Mount Rushmore category. Like Rich said, I mean, his cards are what they are at this point. It's not really a surprise that he's going to be a Hall of Famer. It's not really a surprise he's an all-time great. So a lot of that's already baked in. But what it does do is probably guarantees kind of that slow trajectory, easy for me to say, for the rest of his life, where that card won't really ever take a big hit on its own. And LeBron, for the scoring record, it's kind of the same thing. I think what it does do is it puts another feather in his cap for people who want to make the argument for best ever. And that is appealing to a lot of people who are collecting, is they want the best ever. But I think we already knew he was great, and he already has just about every record you can have by age. So it was only a matter of time on this one.
And I will point out, LeBron had a bump during the pandemic. I had actually bought on a flyer at one of Kyle Robertson's smaller Dallas card shows before they became the 700 table shows. He used to have 45, 50 table shows, and I remember buying, and it wasn't really too cheap. I bought a bunch of second-year LeBron cards at $5 each, just on the assumption that it's a second-year LeBron card, it's $5, I'll get 15 for it. Imagine my surprise during the pandemic when I wasn't getting 15 anymore, that at the end of the pandemic, I was getting 200 and 300 for some of those cards. And I was like, thank you. I mean, that was not what I thought was going to happen. But that move has already happened too. And those cards have settled down a bit. But
Did we lose Rich?
We may have. It's that Dallas cold front that he was talking about.
All right. Well, that's a good segue. We got Ray from Philly joining us, linking in. So he's going to pinch hit here for Rich. So, Ray, good morning. Good Super Bowl weekend, Saturday morning to you.
Hello, gentlemen, and a happy Eagles morning to you, too.
Hey, Ray.
You guys hear me okay?
So, Ray, Yeah, you're good. So Ray, you got what do we got? Like, can people is the voting go right up until noon
Yeah.
for your football Hall of Fame?
No, no, the
So it
voting
is
ended
closed.
on Thursday. The voting is
Okay, all right.
closed. We recorded our video the other day, and it's going to be 24 minutes. So I just wanted to come on and give a special thanks to everyone who helped out. Victor, the rookie card specialist, Mike, this baseball card life, and the two new commissioners that are in charge of the football card Hall of Fame, Bart and Scott of Donnie Tradition. Without them, this wouldn't have happened. So I just wanted to just go on and make sure everyone tunes in and watches it. This is the first year we're doing football with many more things to come, more sports added in the future. So
You want to announce it
yeah,
right
it
now?
was
Scoop
a
your
lot
own
of fun.
channel.
You might see some surprises.
He's got 24 minutes. Let him
Nope.
have his moment of glory. I gotta
Listen,
say
I
though,
gotta
when I
try,
heard
right? I
him
gotta ask.
being interviewed by Dr.
Nope.
Becker on his podcast, and he went Bart Scott, I was thinking, that's great. You got a football player to get. I said, "Oh, you got
well,
Bart
let me
Scott."
ask you this. I mean, obviously,
Yeah, special thanks
the
to Dr.
10.
Beckett.
Yeah, you know the 10 guy. Any surprises?
I can't really say that. Yeah,
I'm gonna be Barbara Walters here.
You have to be the judge for
Is there anybody from
You're
the
going to have to
USFL?
judge for yourself.
I just want to know if there's anybody from the USFL.
Anyone in the U.S.?
USFL. The original.
Quite a few people that were born in the U.S. Yeah. Oh, USFL.
Yeah.
See, I can't say it.
I like
Tune
Danny.
in
I like
in
Danny's
22
approach.
minutes.
I will
What guys you see.
I was asked to vote, and I was very honored to be asked to vote. And I will tell you that I don't remember all my picks, but I know that there was one pick I even wrote. I said this is a homer pick because you had and I know this will not be one of the 10 cards, so I will tell you that the Leafs Sid Luckman card because he's a good Columbia boy, and so I voted for that, knowing it wasn't going to go in. But that's my alma mater, and I wanted to support my alma mater. And if he had put 1980 Topps George Starkey, and I would have voted for the 1980 Topps George Starkey. Or the
Hey Ray, got a question here. Good timing here. When and where can we see that the reveal show? So give out for those watching now, and
Yeah,
even
it's
after
it's on the sports card. It's on the Sports Card Hall of Fame Network YouTube channel. So that's going to be premiering at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time.
Great. Will you put that in the chat also for people who are
Big turnout too, but had a lot of votes, over 316 votes.
Awesome.
And I didn't realize just how many
cool.
good football cards there were. This will go for many years.
Listen, you can watch either 24
That's
hours.
the thing,
of
everyone.
I'm going to plug you here, Ray, and what you're doing, right? You can watch pregame for the next 24 hours leading up to kickoff, or you can devote 30, 60 minutes and those, especially if you're in the hobby, and see what the masses enshrined in to their football card Hall of Fame. And
Right.
You can miss an hour of NFL Super Bowl pregame. You got 23 more to watch
down
after
here.
that.
It begins at 10 a.m. in the morning down in the central time zone for when the pregame coverage begins, which means if you're on the West Coast, pregame coverage begins at 8 a.m. in the morning. You get to wake up on Sunday morning to pregame coverage. That doesn't stop.
Rich, I got pregame coverage is going.
No.
We're up against pregame coverage right now. All four of us are up against pregame coverage.
We are pregame coverage.
We are, and we're part of it. We talked about the Super Bowl. You're right.
We're part of the problem.
And I'm better look. I'm not good looking, but I am better looking than Terry Bradshaw. Speaking of Mr. Bradshaw, so maybe not by much.
You realize I'm the only guy here without facial hair?
So, well, Ray,
Yes, I just wanted to I don't want to take up too much of you guys' time.
Okay. Well,
So yeah,
we'll see. We'll
Sports
see
Card
what the
Network. This is the
people.
first year for football cards. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
we'll see. We'll see
yeah,
who the men
definitely.
are, right? And I had you on my show with the other guy, Bart and Scott. We went through all the cards. That I don't know who the 10 are going to be. I know who I voted for, but man, there's going to be 35 cards that are not getting in that I could have made an argument for. So I think it sets up well for
An
obviously
exclusive
the
club.
classes to come. Yep, yep. So all right, Ray. Thanks. Good luck tomorrow
All right. Well,
to
thank you
your
very much for
Eagles.
having me on, guys.
Good
Take
luck,
care.
Ray.
All right. Enjoy the game.
Good luck. Thanks, guys. Bye bye.
All right, guys. So I didn't really give my take on the whole kind of Brady LeBron thing. I think Brady's going to get more of a bump if we're doing percentage comparisons, because I think this feels more like if the reports that he signed his retirement papers, he's taking a year off, then he's going to do broadcasting in 2024. This kind of does feel sort of like the end, and I think that bump's going to come from like that is the last you see of him on the playing field. LeBron's going to be playing for at least probably a few more seasons. That scoring title, the all-time scoring leader, you knew that was coming. Didn't sneak up on anyone, so it wasn't like, oh my God, he just did it. So I think there'll be, Rich, you made a great point that he sort of had that increase, a couple of them, right? When he first signed with the Lakers, his stuff went up. When they were really one of the few sports playing during the early days of the pandemic in the bubble, he saw an increase. So I think Brady out of the two is going to see the bigger percentage wise increase, just to the fact that he's not playing no more, and it feels like it really is the end of Brady on the playing side of football. We're still going to get Brady, the announcer. We'll see how that goes. If he's going to be a GOAT in that realm and space, all he's got, he's just got to be better than Tony Romo, and then I think he'll keep his job there. So, I think he'll be very good. Whether you like Tom Brady or not, I think he will be good, just for the experience he has, of all that Super Bowl and being a quarterback and that sort of thing. A comment, I'm trying to find it. I can't find it. I apologize, but I think it was Curiosities who put like, what's going to happen is you're going to see more fakes, right? You're going to see more Tom Brady, maybe fake autographs and in memorabilia. That's always going to be a concern, regardless of what's going on and off the field, right? If any memorabilia or any autograph that is potentially worth a lot of money, people are gonna fugazi it and fake it and hopefully get caught and go to prison, like we've seen recently. It just seems like every other week, on my hobby news site, you read so and so was just indicted or sentenced for fake sports cards or memorabilia or an autograph. So that's always unfortunately. That's why we have authenticators. That's why we have grading in this hobby. Whether you like those things or not, that's one of the main reasons those entities exist. So that's always going to be there. Will it be amplified with a retirement? Probably a little bit, but Brady autos were being forged before the retirement announcement as well. So that's just going to be, unfortunately, always sort of an issue. Any before we move to the next segment here, any final comments on the Brady and
Well,
James bump?
yeah, I think both of you guys made the point that LeBron, everybody knew that he was going to set the record and the points were coming in. This is a good time. If you did not know LeBron was going to set the record, don't buy his cards. If you did not know it was going to happen, you shouldn't be buying it anyway. So
and where you been? And then my next question
right.
is, it's like that commercial where the guy comes out in spring and he still got his winter coat on, and they're like, "Get this man a beer." Like if you're
Yes.
that guy, don't
Oh
buy the
yes, the
Right.
thing when he's grilling, and it's like, oh, that is such a funny commercial.
Oh. So that
By
just
the
made
way,
me
one
realize.
thing that we're all forgetting about LeBron is he's also number 4 all time on the career assist list.
Yeah, and he's a great player, but we knew he was a great player before the scoring record fell, right?
Well-
Like this is not like this cements his legacy. His legacy was cemented. He's got championship rings. He's got this accolade. Like he's on a lot of like all time lists. Just being great and playing so long.
But he
The
came
most
in with
amazing thing about LeBron is that he's so far, as far as I know, the first NBA player to get past the 40,000 minute mark in career minutes and be almost as good after 40,000 minutes as he would. Most players really decline at the 40,000 minute career mark. He really hasn't, and that's what's made him unique on this thing. Even Kareem declined at that point. Elvin Hayes.
So you're saying? So am I reading between the lines? That you're saying LeBron uses HGH?
Being a good Baltimore fan.
Rich is saying LeBron's using HGH.
There's a lot of positives about LeBron, including you've never heard him get into any sort of trouble. Yeah. You've never heard Tom Brady get into any sort of trouble. I mean, the personal issues are one thing, but I mean, you don't hear about Brady getting arrested or being drunk in public. I mean,
except at Super Bowl parades.
Well, that's okay. Look, the quarterback for Oklahoma got wasted and didn't even show up for his media thing. Spencer Bennett or Alabama, whatever, Georgia, whatever college it was, he got wasted and he didn't come to the media day the day after they won the national championship. And I don't blame Spencer Bennett for that. I mean, considering where he started and where he ended up.
Stetson.
Stetson
Bennett. We apologize to Stetson Bennett and his parents for saying his name wrong. But, there you go.
Hey, it's
all right, guys. Let's
we'll forget everything else.
We'll talk. We'll go from one Laker to another former Laker, and that's Kobe Bryant. A jersey just made recent news, as you see there with the banner. $5.8 million. This jersey went. This is via Sotheby's auction in New York City. This is from the 2007-2008 season. One in which he took down the NBA MVP award. This to me, and I want to get your gut. When I first heard this story, I thought, is it a rookie jersey? Is it like his last year, a retirement type of jersey? And it's neither, right? It's just a regular season jersey, one which he won the MVP. This seems like a lot of money. I mean, listen, any Kobe jersey is historic and anyone would love to own it. I'm not besmirching the jersey. I'm just talking about the price this fetched. This seems like a lot of money for sort of a, I don't want to say regular, that's not necessarily fair, but a non-really, historic, not a rookie jersey, not a last game, not a, we didn't even necessarily set a record. In this jersey, like we talked, that LeBron jersey where he breaks the scoring record, what would that bring now if that went to auction right away, right? So why so much for this particular, that's what I'm curious. Why so much for this particular jersey?
I mean, it was from an MVP season, so there's a little bit of connection there. I know that that doesn't justify it being the highest selling Kobe jersey ever, and that's what this is it surpassed a $3.7 million Kobe jersey. And one of the things that actually I think it's a good sign for the hobby. Not a lot of things are setting new records, and so. John, to your point, maybe it's a good thing, a good sign that somebody's paying this type of money in this environment right now. That's the way I look at it. Otherwise, I mean, Kobe's stuff is just going to be liquid and generational and very sought after for years. I spoke to somebody yesterday and said, Kobe sells all day, every day, everywhere in this country. And so when you get a significant item, that ceiling and that bar might just keep raising.
Kobe's a generational player. And when you're a generational player, as you pointed out, we don't know what the final sky is. What if you had Tom Brady won 7 Super Bowls? which Super Bowl jersey do you think would be the most expensive one, and do you think it would go for $5.8 million of a Tom Brady jersey or LeBron James?
I would pick the first one. I would pick the first one.
What about LeBron James? Would you take the first one he won with Miami, or would you take the one that he won when he was with the Cleveland Cavaliers and brought Cleveland its first title in more than 50 years?
I'd rather have the Cleveland one, just with his hometown connection, right? It's going to be more demand if that's what you're looking for. Here's my question. Real quick though, so this brings 5.8. You mentioned, we mentioned some of those other. So now, if I'm the owner of like his rookie season jersey, if I'm the owner of his last jersey he wore on the court, I'm licking my chops right here. I'm like, hey, this is a 2007, 2008, sure, MVP season jersey. I got his rookie jersey. Hey, I got his last jersey he wore. If this one's bringing 5.8, what's mine worth? I'm making phone calls to auction houses saying, hey, this is what I own. You saw what this jersey recently just did, this 07, 08. What can we do with this? What do you think this brings? That's how the gears in my mind are turning.
Well, when the one sold for $3.7 million, I would think that more would start coming out of the closet. But maybe it's just the market now. People are just thinking it's down, and I'll hold, for another rush. Because what would these have sold for a couple of years ago? I don't know.
Well, and reading the story, which I reread just before we started talking about it, he wore the jersey in, I think it was 25 of the 82 regular season games. Yes, 25 of the 82 games that season, and then 6 in the playoffs. So there are not that many jerseys one wears during the season. This is not Gaylord Perry the night he wins his 300th game, where between every game he goes and changes jerseys. So he has 9 jerseys to sell of that game. I think Pete Rose did the same thing the day he set his hit, either the 3,000 hit or the 3,630 first hit to set the NL record, or 4,192. But he's done that too. There are guys that have done that. So if this is 25 of 82, what's he wearing? 3-4 jerseys in a year? There aren't.
Well, here, great question. Great, right here. Stooks baseball card and curiosities. Basketball players have multiple set of jerseys each year. How many MVP seasons were there? Like you just said, Rich, right? So if if there's 5 and I'm the 7, I own, one of those 7 other people, or I have one. I'm getting mine ready for auction after a $5.8 million sale. I think it's safe to say they did that for those that have those. So I'm prepping to move them. If this sets are that high, I may not even wanted to sell my jersey. It's in my den, my office, right? Yep. Probably well protected and alarmed. But now I'm like, hey, this thing I just bought for this amount just sold for 5.8. Mine's the same year, same number. It can be advertised in the same fashion as the one that just sold for 5. I'm getting that ready to go on the block and cash out. And like this comment from Brendan Ryan says, think how many Kobe cards you can buy with $5.8 million, right? If you're a card collector. So yeah, I mean, that's if I don't have one, obviously, but I'd definitely be, cashing out if I had a Kobe jersey.
Well, John, you and I would be cashing out, but if a person has enough money to spend $5.8 million for a jersey, the odds are pretty good they don't care, and they're buying it to keep it. And maybe their heirs will sell it someday, but they don't want to sell it. If you're spending $5.8 million, you're probably worth in the hundreds of millions, if not billions. And therefore, 5.8.
Yeah, Ziggy makes a couple comments in the chat room that are good points. How do we know maybe this wasn't bought for fractionalization? How do we know this wasn't bought to be cut up and maybe make some MVP season memorabilia cards by a company? Maybe Fanini. Maybe
that's when you get a fake Panini redemption. It's called it's a Fanini. You get them on the.
I thought panini was a sandwich.
Maybe Fanatics bought it, and they're not going to announce that they bought it. Maybe they paid the price, and this is going to be in a future Tops release, right? Who knows, right? It's all those things. We don't know. Be interesting. A lot of times with these big auction sales, the buyers obviously identities kept private unless they themselves brag that, hey, look what I just bought. Most of the times they don't. And so we'll see. Maybe we'll be seeing this jersey in a different form when you open a pack, a future Tops pack down the line, or maybe you'll see it on a fractional website where you can own a piece of it, literally, a fractional slice of it as well. So. Slip of the tongue, Fanini.
I do think that it not being the most expensive jersey ever makes it easier for people to spend the money. I know that's kind of a weird thought, but if you're not setting an all-time record, this is not the most expensive basketball jersey. This is not the most expensive jersey. So, there's a reason they have these auctions late at night after people have had a cocktail and, maybe somebody like Uncle Rich said, this person's probably worth plenty of money. Listen, I've bought bad cards on eBay for $5, so you never know.
All right, guys, last subject. We're at the top of the hour, but it's coming out here in 4 days, and that's the Tops 2023 flagship. I know we've talked about it some with the design and whatnot. This is something that I noticed pretty early on when they released their spec sheet, and I kind of like this, and not a lot of buzz about it, at least I haven't noticed, but we're all familiar with Tops doing like photo image variations. They usually do between 10 or 20 each release, right, of certain guys and certain stars, but for the first time ever, the first series 330 cards. Every one of those 330 cards will have a alternate image variation. So every card in the first series, and I would guess subsequent series to come, will have a different image variation. Obviously, going to be a little harder to get. I'm not sure the odds, guys. But what the nice thing Tops is doing here is they're making the back. So if you want, you don't have to guess if you've got an image variation. You just flip the card over. And if you see it with the back of the card I put on the screen here, if you have an image variation, you will have that gold back. So if you have a gold back, you have an image variation. So for the first time ever, they're doing all cards in the set will have a alternate image on the front. I don't know if you're guaranteed how many are guaranteed per box, and I kind of like that for those that collect. Maybe someone collects and they're not always collecting the Julio Rodriguez, which is shown here. Maybe they're collecting the Nick Senzels of the baseball world. Right now, you can still have a chance to get a short print or variation card. I like this. I'm venturing to guess there might be some that says now we have too many variations. Now we have 330 instead of 15. For master set collectors, they're probably, holding their head like, oh my God, my job just got more difficult, right? What do you guys think? I kind of like it, but I'm not a set collector, so I want to make that distinction known. If for set collectors, they may not be as ecstatic or happy as I am.
I was going to say that this might be not popular. I'm not a fan of image variation cards. So to me, this is, the gold back is cool. I don't like the photo manipulation. So I'm one of the few people. I think it's a creation of artificial quantity population management to try to get people just to buy more packs. I don't really think it's anything more than that.
I'm okay with image variations. I mean, but I'm really okay. And Heritage has done this the last couple of years. And what I really like is I wrote box reviews 10, 15 years ago. And and I had such a pain when I would have a product like Tops where you had to wait to see what collector connection or Beckett would come up with the image variation photo library. I couldn't write my review until I saw, did I have any image variations? This makes it a lot easier to know what you've got. And anything that makes it easier to know what you get is better for buyers and sellers. And that's been that way for 25 years. I remember way back in my Beckett days, like 1997, something like Pinnacle Certified or something like that, where they had all these different like XY axis and all that. And people were selling their easy cards for $100 on eBay because there were none. And the cards that should have been $100 were $2. At least you know what you're getting with this. And the more you know what you're getting, the better it is for both collectors, dealers, and consumers. If I see that I'm a Julio Rodriguez fan, I know which card I need to get. And I'm not a big, I don't think any of us are big fans of artificial scarcity, but I am a big fan of making sure that you know what you get out of a pack and you don't accidentally sell a $400 card or a $100 card for $3 because nobody knows.
Yeah, it does. It is artificial scarcity. Mark Hoyle made a comment. He's not down with, artificial scarcity. I get that. I definitely, again, I'm not a set collector. So this is kind of cool. Your sites that do a lot of like Beckett, Cardboard Connect, that post a lot of pictures of the image variation. You'd open a product and then you'd have to go there to check, did I get one? And look at their pictures they post. Now Topps is sort of cutting them out and saying, hey, we'll tell you got one. Just flip it over and look at the back, and there you go. So I don't think Cardboard Connection is going to like these. It's going to cut down maybe a little bit on their website traffic. It makes your job easier with Cobb C. Rich to, hey, I know what this is now. I don't have to get out, a magnifying glass or my super duper high powered magnification glasses, stuff I use when it comes to pre-grading. So yeah, I like 330 of these is a bit much. Let's be real right now. Certainly, if you're a master set collector, if you're one of those folks, right, you just got 330 more cards in a sense to try to add to that master set. So that just became more daunting. I read this as much as I like sort of what Topps is doing with the backs and making it very easy to tell what you have or don't have. If I was a set collector, I'd probably be like, taking some heartburn medication right now, some Pepto-Bismol, because this is it's costing me more money and it's going to make getting a master set all that more difficult. So I see both. And I guess when I'm really thinking about this, I think I'm more glad that they're doing the backs like that than the fact that they're doing every card. But traditionally, they always pick like superstars to do the image variations. For those that collect players that aren't on that tier, it gives them a chance to get an additional card for their player collection.
And to be honest, it costs Topps more money to do this. As I point
out,
this
is my next question.
This is for a photo, and so
does this?
You're doing, let's say you're paying $100 for a photo. Let's use the term $100 for a photo. I don't know what the number is. You've now multiplied 100 times 330. So you're actually willing to spend a lot more money on the product to get all these photos. And so give Topps some props for not only doing this, but spending some real coin to do it thereof.
Yeah.
Well, that's go ahead, Danny. And then I got a question.
Well, what I was going to say is, I look at this and I think that rookie cup is more controversial than anything else.
Well, one of the first things that I thought when I saw this and that they were going to do it for every card in the first series my first thought. Listen, flagship is not underproduced to begin with. Okay,
Yeah.
let's set the baseline. But one of my first thoughts, guys, was how much stuff. If they're doing a variation for every card in the set, how much are they producing? Are they? I mean, you're going to go to, you're going to go to Lids and see it on the shelves there. You're going to go to Cracker Barrel. You're going to go to your restaurant. It's going to be behind the hostess stand. You go to make funeral arrangements for a family member, and on the desk of the funeral director, there's going to be boxes of Tops 2023. Like, how much stuff? Like, is this going to be like it already is mass produced?
Wait, are you calling this the death of the hobby, John?
And I'm not. The hobby will never die, so I cannot. It's like Superman.
Hey, remember,
right?
Andre Dawson is a
That's
mortician
the Superman,
nowadays.
and he comes back, right?
The Hawk of Night.
But I mean, how this? Rich makes a great point. Not only is this costing Fanatics more money, they bought these licenses for good. They bought these things for good money. They got to make it back. But how much flagship is going to be out there? How many boxes of this is going to be produced? So especially if these variations are not one per pack, if they're like 4 or 5 per box, and there's 330 of them, you do the math. That means there's a lot of these boxes of flagship produced.
But the question is, John, one thing I didn't see, and I will double check. I didn't see where it says, is it hobby only? Is it going to be in retail too? Is it going to be whatever? And so
I believe these will be in across the board hobby.
So if they're across the board, that gives everybody a reason. Remember, not everybody has access to a hobby store. And so this gives me a reason if I live, and my only way to get brand new cards other than mail order, if I want to get cards in person, is Walmart or Target or a place like that. That gives me a reason to buy the box at the store and hope I get something good. We've seen in recent months some of the best cards come out of retail. I try to look at this as a business level. And on a business level, it's really a smart thing. It gives everybody a chance to get what they would consider a cool card. It doesn't limit you to just the hobby shops. I have a very good hobby shop 5 minutes from where I live. I'm a big fan of hobby shops. And I have other good hobby shops in the DFW area. I'm very fortunate. But if I don't live in DFW and I live 8 hours west in wherever it is in West Texas, and I'm still in the state of Texas, but there's not a lot of hobby shops and I've got to go to Walmart to get my 2023 tops in person. Well, if I do that, then it's nice to have a chance to get something good out of those boxes too.
Yeah, I mean, I always like supporting retail, and I'm glad that retail is supported. Maybe it's me. I wouldn't buy more because I can get a Nick Senzel chicken head picture. I mean, that doesn't make me want to buy more. And maybe that's just me. Now, maybe the gold back is a way to kind of pizzazz it up a little bit. They could have picked any color for the back. They chose gold, and maybe we'll find out that the short print is really a super short print, and there's more scarcity than we realize, and that would make it more attractive. Otherwise, you could have kept it with the stars and make it a super short.
And in
it
retail,
makes things interesting. Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
I once bought a Leaf Babe Ruth retail box, and that said, go look for bat cards. Well, I opened the box. It's 60 cards. They're all base cards. There's not even a retail parallel. You've got to give the retail people something too. So I hope it is in retail, and I hope, and I'm a big fan, as Danny pointed out. You have to give people something, and Fanatics A has spent all this money, but B, Topps One is the most popular product, but you have to experiment a little. You can't make it go stale. And if this works, it's great. And if it doesn't work, it can be a 1-year experiment and say, we'll go back to 20 image variations next year. For years, Topps did vintage guys as the image variation. Mm-hmm. If you had a Jorge Posada card as a catcher, the image variation, so to speak, the veteran, super veteran short print might be Thurman Munson.
Yep.
I'm okay with them only using active players, and maybe they can spice it up and use some veterans too. Maybe have three variations.
Well, I will say this. I've thought about, like, if you're a Kansas City Royal card collector, right? Your team set just went from 18 to 36 cards. But what it might promote is some trading, right? So I collect the Royals, Danny collects the Orioles, you collect the Rangers, Rich, and then we could trade and say, hey, I'll give you all the I'll give you all the Rangers and Oriole image variations. You give me all your Royals imagery. It might create sort of a trading. Not that trading doesn't happen already, but maybe on a lower level. That it might increase trading. I don't know. Maybe I'm wishful thinking there. But it definitely ups the ante, right? If you're a team set collector, you've got twice as many cards to get now. If you're a master set collector, your job just got even more difficult. But if you're opening packs, right, and you hit that gold back card, you're probably happy too. So it's going to make some people happy. It's going to make some people pull their hair out, right? But we can do that every year with almost every product. So this is just we're 4 days away, and nothing says spring, right? Nothing gets you thinking about spring when Topps flagship comes out. Then pitchers and catchers report to Florida and Arizona, and being a Mets fan, usually I don't get that excited under the Wilpon days. I'm just like, oh, it's baseball season. But now we get a little more excited as
Well,
Mets
in your
fans.
Steve Cohen days, there's no money limit for what Steve Cohen so far is spending.
That's crazy. He's the modern day Steinbrenner, I guess. George Steinbrenner, that is.
Steinbrenner helped the Yankees win a whole bunch of World Series. So
Yep.
There is that. And
especially when he was suspended.
Yeah.
I do say it's 4 days from now. And pretty much I want to say, unless something really spooky happens with the prices between now and Wednesday, I'll go down to my local card store on Wednesday night after work. I will buy a box of Topps One. I will open it. I will have fun. I will look for those image variations. I will find that they're a lot easier to figure out with the backs, and I will enjoy opening Topps One. And that is perfectly fine.
Yep. Well, guys, we went. It's not Tuesday, but we still went a little over. We went a little over. That's okay. Not knowing we wouldn't have a Tuesday show. Speaking of that, let me make that announcement formally. Tuesday is Valentine's Day. We didn't want to get any significant others in trouble watching us at 9 p.m. Eastern or 6 p.m. Pacific Tuesday. So we're going to take Tuesday off to spend with loved ones. Hopefully you have a significant other. If you don't have a significant other and you miss us on Tuesday, hug your cards. Okay, hug your cards. You always have them. They're always there for you. But all joking aside, we're gonna take a break for Tuesday. We're gonna be back here on Saturday, right here on Bench Clear as well. And the Saturday show, let me put it up here where we got it. This guy's not even going to leave. Danny's just going to stay here all week, and so
I'll be in here till Saturday. Just stop by and visit.
So Danny's not leaving. He's going to stick around for the week
and
get everything prepped. Tony from Cousins Collectible will be joining him, and Adam from Heroes for Sale. So it'll be Danny, Tony, and Adam, and we'll be back right here Saturday. As always, thank you, everybody out there while you watch us live.
And I want to say something before we go.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rich, before we say goodbye.
A friend of mine from high school and college, his name was Josh Ehrlich. He passed this week at the age of 66. Now, we who knew him and loved him called him Uncle Joshy. Yes, uncles have uncles. Josh was also a sports guy. I would see him when I was doing the stats at the U.S. Tennis Open. He ran the press box at the U.S. Tennis Open. And I just want to point out, we always just talk about the players, but the entire sports infrastructure needs a whole bunch of people to get us through. It needs the writers. It needs the broadcasters. It needs the fans. And it needs the people that support these people. Josh and his friends, most of whom I knew too, running the press box, are part of the sports infrastructure. So just remember, everybody's out there, everybody has a role, and no matter how insignificant you think it is, it's not, because it helps us as well blather about what we like to blather about, or bloviate about, or what we want to bloviate about, or even if we're like screaming A. Smith, scream about what we want to scream about. Everybody's important. And that's really what I want to just say. Everybody who's participated in the chat, you're all very important to us. Everybody who's helped us over the years at Hobby Hotline, you're very important to us. And everybody who's watched the show, you're also very important to us. And we appreciate each and every one of you. And God rest in peace, Uncle Joshy.
Well said, Rich. Well said. Sorry for your loss. As you always say, may his memory be a blessing as well. So, again, I'll piggyback off that. Thanks, everybody, for whether you're watching us live, whether you're watching us not live and just catch up that way, or you just listen, you get an ugly guy like this on the screen. I don't blame you for downloading the show either. So, even thank you folks that do that. As well. Whatever the case may be, we'll be back here. Not me or Rich, but Danny's going to stay in the room till Saturday, and then she'll be joined by Tony and Adam. So with that being said, have a great Super Bowl weekend. Enjoy the game. Enjoy the chicken wings and anything else, nachos, tacos, whatever you eat. I know I'm going to be enjoying, as you can see, those festivities as well. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.